Hello everybody and welcome to Yarn of a Kind. My name is Alicia and in today's video I have 10 no-sew and free amigurumi patterns for you. A few months ago, I made a video on 10 no-sew free amigurumi patterns, so if you haven't watched that yet, be sure to go and check that out after you finish this video. For a lot of these patterns, you are going to need to know how to do bobble stitches. So if you're not familiar with bobble stitches, I'm going to link a video tutorial in the description box below and you can check that out because when I first learned how to do bobble stitches, this video really helped me and I hope that it's going to be useful for you too. So we're going to dive into the patterns and I'm going to share how long it took me to make each pattern as well as some of my feedback and comments on each pattern. And the first pattern that I want to share with all of you is this no-sew Lovebug by celestialcbcrochet. This took me 2 hours to make and I think that this is such a clever pattern because you can use all kinds of color combinations for the Lovebug and you can make them for any of your loved ones. It would be such a cute little gift. In this pattern, you start with making the wings, which are in the shape of a heart, and then you crochet those directly into the body. Not gonna lie, it was only in about round 6 of making the wings that I realized it was actually in the shape of a heart, and I've actually made quite a few heart patterns before, so from then on it just made so much sense. So you don't actually stuff the heart because those are the wings and you need them to be flat. But I did encounter a few issues while making this pattern and the first one was in round 5 of the head. The designer did put a correction in the caption, so make sure you check that out and don't miss out that correction because if you miss that, it could be quite frustrating as you crochet the head. And there were also a lot of comments about the placement of the bobble stitches. I personally did not encounter too many issues with this, but you just need to be careful that all the bobble stitches are lining up together to make the 6 little legs at the bottom. And the last thing that I noticed was that the pattern didn't mention whether or not you have to sew the wings onto the body. I didn't want the wings to kind of flop up and down, so I sewed them onto the body to secure that. So in that sense, there was just a tiny little bit of sewing involved. But I really like that the designer included specific instructions on where to place the eyes, and there are pictures for guidance. So I generally really like this pattern and I would really recommend that you check it out. The next pattern is a 4-in-1 no-sew birds pattern by lilsloveys. And this is the version that I made. There are 4 different birds that you can make from this pattern, including the mallard duck, the chick, the chicken, and the penguin. And I chose to make a mallard duck because a long time ago I bought the yarn colors for a mallard duck and I never got to make one until now. So I'm really glad that I finally got to try out this pattern and to make this little cutie. It only took me an hour to make this and it was such an easy pattern to follow with really clear instructions for where to place the eye, what size of eye to use, and the instructions for the color changes were really easy to follow as well. So I would highly recommend this pattern. There's only a couple of things that you need to note. The first is that there is a very minor correction which is also specified in the caption, but I would say that this correction is relatively minor and if you were not doing the math, you probably wouldn't even notice that this was a mistake in the pattern. Another thing that I did change for this pattern was I adjusted the placement of the bobble stitches ever so slightly because I wanted to make the legs a little bit further apart. So that's one thing that I did a little bit differently from the pattern. I have not tried making the 3 other versions of this pattern, but I should really try it because it didn't take a long time and it's really easy and it's a great pattern. So definitely go and check it out and make all of those different versions if you have the time. The third pattern is this no-sew baby alpaca by loopedbyanna, and this also took me just an hour to make. The way that you crochet this is from the bottom to the top, and I did run into several difficulties with this pattern, especially when you are doing the head, which is around rows 9 to rows 13. I don't even really know what I did, but I just had to adjust those rows a little bit to make sure that I was getting the snout snout and the placement of the ears in the correct locations. So just be aware when you come to those parts to make sure that you're putting the bobble stitch where the snout is supposed to be. And yeah, just pay a little bit more attention when you get to those areas. And the pattern also does not specify what size of safety eyes to use. So if you want to reference, the size that I used is 6mm eyes, and I used toucan teddy bear yarn to make this baby alpaca, and I use a 5mm hook. So if you have kind of the same yarn and the same size hook as me, you might want to try a 6mm eye and maybe size up if that doesn't work for you. Next, we have the No Sew Chubby Pig by passionatecrafterr, and I am just so in love with this pig pattern. And if you haven't checked out the patterns by passionatecrafterr, you are missing out because she has so many great patterns available for free on her blog. So definitely head over and go and check them out. This pig took me 2.5 hours to make. And the way that you crochet this pig is you start with the nose and then you crochet all the way to the end, and then the ears as well as the tail are surface crocheted into the body. And of course the legs are bobble stitches. I have to say that I'm not a huge fan of how the bright pink spills over into the snout of the pig. Maybe it's just me, but I just feel like it doesn't look great. So that's just something I feel like I would have to change if I wanted to make this pig again. But other than that slight minor detail, everything else about this pattern is just great. There are two different versions of the ears, so if you prefer to crochet it separately and then sew them on, you have that option as well. And this tail, I don't know how I made it stand up like this, but it's just so perfect. And in the pattern, there is a version of a muddy pig, which you can make if you would like to. So I 100% would recommend this no-sew pattern. Please go and check out this as well as passionatecrafterr's other patterns. The next pattern is this no-sew Brontosaurus by kayleecrochet, and I like how big this Brontosaurus turned out because usually no-sew patterns tend to be on the smaller side. So I definitely really enjoyed crocheting this Brontosaurus. One thing that I really like is that the legs are pretty sizable. They're not just bobble stitches, but they're actual legs that you have to stuff. I have to admit that I was a little bit confused initially about how to crochet the legs together, but this picture in the pattern is actually the clue for how you need to position the legs with the stitch markers facing each other when you join the legs together. So just follow this picture and maybe read some of the comments if you need a little bit more clarification, but you should have no issues getting that done. And I was actually really intrigued by how you make the neck and the tail. As you close up the body, you're actually ending up with two holes in the body like you see in this picture from the pattern. And you're actually working towards crocheting the neck first and crocheting the head and then closing that up. Then you come back to the hole at the back where you crochet the tail. So that was a really interesting process, interesting technique, and I would 100% recommend you check out this pattern because as you can see, the pictures and the instructions are really clear, really detailed, and I think you're really going to enjoy making the Brontosaurus. Oh, and this took me 3 hours to make. The next pattern that I tried was this no-sew chill pickle by johannamigurumi. The designer's name is Johanna and she combined her name with Amigurumi, so johannamigurumi, I guess. And I really wanted to make this pickle because it has a flat bottom which enables it to sit, as you can see here, and that just makes it a little bit more special and different from the other pickle patterns that are out there. So overall, this pattern was super straightforward, really easy to follow, and it only took me an hour to make. You make it from the top to the bottom. There is a back loops only round where you make that flat bottom. I think the only issue that I found in this pattern was that it uses the abbreviation of TC, which is usually triple crochet, but I did bobble stitches instead of using triple crochets because that didn't really make sense to me. It's just a really quick and easy project to make, so definitely go and check this one out. The next pattern that I tried was this No Sew Sprout Boy by Marinahookandyarn, And this really should have gone into my crochet plants video, but here he is. It consists of two parts, which are the sprout boy as well as the pot. I didn't encounter a lot of issues while making this pattern, but I do think that the designer could have included a few more pictures to help guide the person who was using the pattern. There were a couple of video tutorials, so check those out if you're lost on how to crochet, especially the vein on the leaf. That part, I think it tripped me up a little bit. But after checking out the video tutorial and trying it out for myself, I decided that I didn't really like the look of the vein on the leaf. So I ended up just leaving the leaf as it was without the vein, and I think that worked okay for me. And I did make a few changes to the pot because I think if I followed the pattern as it was written, I would have ended up with a bigger pot, and I feel like the chunky boy would not have been big enough for the pot. So I made the pot just a little bit shorter so that he would not have too big a pot to sit in. I can't make up my mind about whether or not I like this pattern because I do like the sprout boy, but I just think that this pot is not a great fit for him. So I would love to hear from you guys if you think that this is a cute pattern and whether or not you would try it out for yourself. And this pattern took me 2 hours and 45 minutes to make because I was trying to figure out how to tweak some stuff as I went along. So that's why it took a little bit longer than it should have, I think. The next pattern that I tried was this no-sew ducky in a frog hat. It's by nastik.toys, but it was translated by ackyplushies. So I found the pattern on ackyplushies Instagram account, and I will link that below, but I'll also link the original creator so you can check out their pattern if you know Russian. I think the account is in Russian. Look at how small this duck turned out. It's so cute, and it just took me an hour to make. And I love that there are a few colors going on in this little duck. The frog eyes on the head as well as the duck's legs are bobble stitches. This turned out to be such a quick and easy make, and I just really love how it turned out. It's super cute, and I think this would make a great keychain, honestly, because it's just so tiny. So definitely go and check out these creators and make yourself one of these duckies in frog heads. It's really an easy pattern to follow. The next pattern is a no-sew clownfish by Coffee and Crochet, and I love every single thing about this pattern. I love the color changes, I love the fins, the little tail at the back. I just think that this is an amazing pattern, and I actually had nothing to improve upon with this pattern. Everything is just really clear. The instructions are just perfect. There are nice pictures for you to follow along with, and this took me an hour and a half to make. I feel like it turns out exactly like a clownfish, and it's super adorable. So for anyone in your life who is a fan of Finding Nemo or maybe just clownfishes in general, definitely go and check out this pattern and make them one, or just make one for yourself, because this is such a great pattern. Seriously guys, go and check out this one. And somehow we have arrived at the last no-sew pattern, which is this Itty Bitty Triceratops by Kascibelle, and this took me an hour and a half to make. And I generally like this pattern, but I feel like the designer should include a materials list, which would be really helpful for people who are beginner crocheters, and also helpful for people who generally want to know what eye size to use. If you want a reference, I use 8mm safety eyes, and the yarn that I used is Honey Bunny yarn as well as a 5mm crochet hook. I think the pattern was generally okay, but if I could give some feedback, I would ask the designer to add instructions about stuffing the Triceratops, as well as fix some issues with the crown. So this part of the Triceratops is the crown, and I think that there were some errors with it. Like she says to crochet into the back loops, but I think she actually means front loops because we crocheted into the back loops while we were doing the head. So the only thing available to crochet in would be the front loops. And then the crown was generally a little bit confusing, so just watch out for that if you're trying out this pattern. I think it turned out okay in the end, but it was a journey to get here. And as usual, at the end of videos like this, I like to point out which were my favorite patterns. And for this video, these are the winners. For the mallard duck, I really liked that there were 4 different versions of the pattern that I could create. For the Brontosaurus, I liked that I was learning new techniques of how to create a plushie like this. And for this clownfish, it's really just too cute for words, and it was I think the only pattern where I did not encounter any issues whatsoever. So these three are my favorite patterns, and I hope you try out at least one of these, if not all three, as well as check out some of the other patterns because they're all actually really great patterns. You may have to get creative and figure your way around some of them, but it's always a nice challenge to try out different patterns. So definitely subscribe if you want more videos like this, and drop me a comment if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!